Hey everyone and welcome back. With this video we are going back to a kind of video where already had the earliest days of this format and was just reviewing the most recent decklist. But this time we aren't taking a look at only the last week decklists, but we are taking a look at the last month deck list. And the main reason for that is that I wanted to take a look at the most innovative or interesting deck list that, thanks to the last one or two expansion, got the way to got to see play in Pauper. The main reason for that is that starting from 18 August, we will starting see the spoilers of Dominaria United. So for that reason, we're taking a look at this 13 deck list, and most of those deck lists are showing one specific card from Commander Legends Baldur's Gate, and that card is Basilisk Gate. Basilisk Gate, as already said, I never expecting to see it seen playing on constricted format, but since cards like Wasteland, Ghost Quarter, and similar aren't played in Pauper because they aren't legal, Basilisk Gate is great. It's a great way to win in mid-late game with every non-aggressive strategies, but also with mostly focused aggressive strategies. So the first one by Zoon is Aristocrats, and similarly to any other sacrifice archetype, is based on having bad and cheap creatures that get you some benefit from dying. Most times, this benefit is just that they replace themselves with a token, and in this case, the aristocrats effect the sacrifice creature isn't Carrion Feeder, but is Character Aristocrats. And the cool part about Character Aristocrats in this deck is that you are relying on Basilisk Gate, so you pump Character Aristocrats and then get it unblockable by giving it protection from your opponent's creature's color. Another important part of this list is that is relying on 12 copies of Night Whisper in form of Dispute, Villager Right, and of course Night Whisper, and that's also an important part because it's just a bunch of card vintage cheap creatures and Basilisk Gate. Then we have Ephemerate, 5-color Ephemerate by Nutwood, which mostly is the traditional control-ish Ephemerate deck, but it also has Korsky Fisher, Wounded Growth, Omen of the Sea, and the Gates land. The Gate lands in form of Citadel Gate, Cliff Gate, Epic Gate, and of course Basilisk Gate. So this one is control strategy with a lot of card vintage, interaction, and counter spells. And also they have the Basilisk Gate package, which just give another way for that deck to win. In my opinion, it's not really great as an ephemerate deck compared to Jeskai or Familiars, because they have a lot of tap lands and is not real explosive compared to Familiars, and doesn't have a cleansing Wi-Fi as a mana ramp, but is probably more funny if you just want to play a deck that can be fun to play. Then we have mono white in form of white Weenie. The cool part about white Weenie nowadays is that they can play both Rough Informant and Militia Buckler, I'm a huge fan of Raphael's Informant. I'd already played Raphael's Informant in 2 decks, which were Beerus Bully and Torture Existence. I think that Raphael's Informant is probably one of the best 2-mana creature at least from New Kevin, at least when it comes to a 2-mana creature that replaces itself and dump a card in the graveyard. It could be cool with creatures like Lunar Veteran and maybe also spells like Personality Strength and Battle Screech, of course. Nowadays, Burst Bully is basically the only deck playing Militia Bagler, but it's also the only deck. It's another deck that play pretty similar gameplay as Burst Bully. Besides, also Burst Bully has dropped Pulse Sentinel from its list and now is just Acro token, similarly to White Weenie. Then we have Dimir Control, which is probably the most similar deck playing a traditional control strategy in Pauper. Compared to the previous Dimir Control list that got a trophy on Magic Online, this one, instead of Ogre of Bolas, played the Modern Age, and it also plays one copy of Vampire Sovereign. I don't think that Vampire Sovereign here is good because it's a counter spell deck, and having double black mana could be tough, but the card by itself apparently seems to be good in Pauper because this one is not the only deck playing Vampire Sovereign. I think that eventually play the Initiative card instead of Vampire Sovereign, at least in paper. Besides, Initiative is not yet on Magic Online, and maybe we will not even be able to see Initiative on Magic Online at all. Just depends if Wizard of the Coast want to add it on Magic Online, and if we don't play enough to Wizards and the Breakout games, probably Wizard will not ask the Break games to add it on Magic Online. Then we have a Dimir combo deck by 420 Dragon. This one is still relying on Basilisk Gate and Infect Traitors. I think I get why playing over Bolas, but I don't really get why playing over Gedwell. Probably the Dragon just wanted to have mid-range style or control-ish style gameplay outside the Infect gameplay, and it may be kind of worth sometimes at least. But cards like the Die Down or Essence Infusion doesn't really do much beside improving your combo gameplay. Light Agent and Blight Stinger are weak to any kind of thermal spells, and Dive Down is just giving export to your creature. I think that's important to note that this kind of slow combo deck doesn't show off too much on Pauper, especially nowadays, but a combo deck that is slow seems to be weak, generally speaking, in Magic, but I think that it may be good. I'm not sure how much, and I also think that we still need to improve any kind of Basilisk Gate Infect combo deck, but it sure has some potential. Then we have Pestilence by Solarm. This list is running blue alongside white and black, but only 2 copies of Muldrifter and only 1 copy of Dreamstalker, from my point of view, seems just not enough compared to how much good is Muldrifter in this kind of strategy. They also running Omen of the Dead in 4 copies instead of Spirit Supplies, and I guess it's kind of fine. And then there's Navigator's Compass. And of course, Basilisk Gate. So basically is Esper Pestilence with gates, and the gates are kind of good when it comes to playing 3 colors. And yeah, there's Basilisk Gate, which is kind of weak because it's colorless, but there's also Navigator's Compass, which is great both with Pestilence and Basilisk Gate, especially since Pestilence requires a lot of black mana and also deals damage to you. Simon Expert was really wasn't really lucky enough to get in top 8 in this power challenge, but got 9th place. So what deck was is playing? It's Mono Blitz splashing white for Secret of the Way, and also Basilisk Gate. I mean, I get why splashing white in Kiln, because you maybe want more protection spells in form of Good Willing or whatever spell you want to play alongside Apostle's Blessing, but they aren't playing Apostle's Blessing, so why they're splashing white? Just for Secret of the Way? And also, I get that you want to play Basilisk Gate, but I think that this deck is not who Kiln is supposed to play, but they were so tiny to get in top 8, so I guess that this kind of deck could be still be good enough to see play event out. They play only 4 copies, only 3 copies of Time of Battle Rage. They don't play Apostle's Blessing. They play only 3 copies of Loud Art, and but they play Basilisk Gate. It's kind of weird from my point of view, this deck, this list at least, because in my opinion you can still play more than 16 creatures, more than 12 creatures, even without playing white. So I don't really get why playing white just to add Secret of the Way. Then we have another Basilisk Gate. Why not? And this time is the Xerus control deck that usually runs Guardian of the Guildpact, but I wanted to show you this Janice Stone deck list only because it's playing Godspurs, Faithful, Travel Inspector, and Count Osir that they usually don't play. Usually, this deck plays only Secret Cat and Guardian of the Guildpact as creatures, but since Basilisk Gate is good with bad creature, at least when it comes to base power and tokens, you can just play creatures that are more functional to their ability, like Godspurs Faithful and Traveling Spectre, and then play Basilisk Gate to try to make them relevant creatures in mid and late game. Of course, Sacred Cat is great with Basilisk Gate thanks to Lifelink. Another cool part about this deck is that it runs the Modern Age, and the Modern Age is of course good with Prismatic Strength, Impanales, and Sacred Cat. There's also some list of Azerius Control that are running a referencing format alongside the Modern Age and Earlier Cat because they just wanted to add more effects similar to the Modern Age. I'm not sure if this may be the best deck for referencing format, but as I already said, referencing format from a point of view is really powerful. And some people are also playing referencing format, the Guardian of the Guildpact in Burst Bully alongside Basilisk Gate. That's not the case of this deck list, but I still think that Basilisk Gate may improve sometimes the gameplay or the very aggressive Burst Bully deck list. Is clearly... oh no, they are also running Burst Garrison. I was able also to see some bully list not playing Burst Garrison, preferring Boros Guildgate or other tap lands instead of Boros Garrison. But since the deck plays Faithless Looting, and Boros Garrison is really great in Pauper alongside Faithless Looting, so you can bounce back a basic land or whatever land and just to have another card that you want to discard with Faithless Looting, I think that main decking 4 copies of Burst Garrison is still the right choice in Burst Bully. So this one basically is the traditional or the most kind of played bully deck right now. So, very aggressive bully without Palace Sentinel, and sometimes they add Basilisk Gate, and probably Basilisk Gate will just be staple in bully from now. Then we have black control. Instead of playing Gary Marchand of Daffodil, they're playing good cards like the Dispute. And I already played something similar in July, if I remember correctly. But at that time, Double Master 22 wasn't already legal. It wasn't even spoiled yet. But then it came Vampire Sovereign. When I tried Boros Magicraft, I was playing Black Oven Vampire, and from my point of view, Black Oven Vampire is better compared to Vampire Sovereign, but Vampire Sovereign has better toughness since it doesn't have only 3 points on toughness like Black Oven Vampire, and also can block Delver of Secrets, Ninja of DT Powers, Spellstutter Sprite, and Korsky Bishop, so it's kind of better in certain matchups and metagames. I think that it's important to note that this mono black devotion, mono black control deck without the devotion gameplay is also running Gruma Angler and Kalni Garden. In my opinion, Angler is truly bad and unnecessary, but I think that the add of Kalni Garden is really great because it allows you to always have something that you may want to sacrifice with Dispute or Ragnaros Bargain. Please note that this list is running 4 copies of Dispute, Bargain, and Equal Wellspring, so they have 12 cards that draw 2 cards, compared to Mono Black, which only runs the Monarch, and 4 copies of Singing Blood. That's just a great improvement. And also there's Blood Fountain. Blood Fountain is something like a card that can draw you 3 extra cards, because you can discard a dead card with the Blood token, and you can also bring back from your graveyard 2 creatures. From my point of view, Blood Fountain is so great that you want to play at least 3 copies of Blood Fountain. So, because for that reason, I prefer to have a more grindy and control-ish version, but still having 12 cards that just draw 2 cards probably is good enough. Anyway, there's also a cool addition to the Aristocrats main deck, is Unexpected Thanks. You don't really expect Unexpected Thanks in the main deck of this deck, but it has a really cool loop, a really cool combo with Aristocrats, so you can target your Aristocrats, the rats become a 2/2, and then you can deal 1 damage to your opponent each turn, and also by doing that you get 1 life from any player and creatures you deal damage with Aristocrats. So basically you start by getting back 3 lives after doing 1 damage also to you, because you deal 1 damage to you, your opponent, and also Aristocrats. So for each damage you deal, you also get back 2 lives if there aren't any other creatures on the battlefield, of course. And that's really cool. So it's sort of mono black life in deck. Awesome. Then we have also Ephemerate. I think that the only players playing also Ephemerate in Pauper is Tyre's TMS, and I'm not showing you this deck because I think that it may be good, because I think that this deck this list is bad. I think that you don't want to play only 1 copies of or 2 copies of Militia Magler or Phyrexian Rager, or only 3 copies of Inspiring Overseer, And I don't get why splitting Ephemerate bring the supernatural stamina into two and only one copy, and why you have the singleton copy of Castdown in your main deck. And also you play also 4 copies of Fan Art alongside the 5 Blink effect, and that's really weird. So I just wanted to show you the deck list. Of course, then I also link all this decklist in the YouTube video description. So if you want to download or just take a better look at this list, you will also able to do that by clicking on it, on the Goldfish list. And then we have another deck that I already played years ago, and that is not Pestilence, I mean Ponza, Golgar Ponza. I was playing Golgari Persevere, Gargantua instead of Vampire Sorin, and I wasn't playing any roll spells in the main deck, if I remember correctly. But I think that is cool that this list is playing Craig Mangler as a way to deal more damage in the early game, because it's an instant creature that you can play by turn 2. And even if you don't play it by turn 2, but by turn 3, is still a great it's a great creature just when it comes to attacking. I don't really like the Monarch Gwynplaine in this deck, but Land Denial when is good because it doesn't allow your opponent to play stuff, so I think that is kind of good dropping a Monarch when your opponent can play any creature or any spell. Deck is cool, but the main reason why playing black in Ponza was Cryptrat, because you can enchant Woodland Chasm with Arbor Elf, with Top Sprawl, named Black, and anytime you untap your Woodland Chasm with Arbor Elf, you generate 2 black mana. So for that reason, Cryptrat was a great end game in Golgari Ponza, and allowed Golgari Ponza to be able to win even against Elves and Burst Bully, which are the main Swarm decks played in Pauper. Also that time was also played a bit Stompy, and Kerberos was also good against Stompy. I think that I still want eventually to play Kerberos in this deck, especially since Ponderous was playing Suffocating Fumes, and I think that Kerberos is still better than Suffocating Fumes in this kind of deck. Then finally we have Affinity by Gareth Witz. This is just Affinity, and this Affinity list is playing Clockwood Stormkeeper as another way to deal more damage. So basically, whenever you create a token, you put one token on Clockwood Stormkeeper. Then there's also Malfolk that it can pump itself whenever you tap 1 mana, sacrifice an artifact or a creature. It's also important that it has lifelink, and lifelink in this particular metagame is, I think, is probably one of the best keyword on the creatures. But I think that's important then to note that the Clockwood Swarmkeeper is powered up by cards like Blood Fountain, Deadly Dispute, and then extra stuff like Nimble, Right, Schematic, and Private C2 that are 2 artifacts from Commander Legends Baldur's Gate that whenever they enter on the battlefield and they die, they generate the treasure token or a 1/1 servo token. So similarly to Eco Wellspring, but they just generate tokens. Then, okay, guys, so we already said everything about this deck list. I'll just wait for the next week to what they may want to show us in the next spoiler season, hoping that there will be something great for Pauper, and also hoping that something great it will not be an artifact. Science Affinity, maybe you aren't really aware, but it's still one of the best decks in the format, and the format is still playing around decks like Affinity. For that reason, bye and see you next week.